Hello, welcome to another of our Glasgow Loves EU live streams. And tonight we're very pleased to have with us, we've got Vernon, who is a lorry driver.
Good evening.
Welcome, Luke. And we're very much looking forward to asking him some questions because I've got absolutely no idea about this sector of the economy, very, very important sector. And we've seen the importance just recently with COVID and the stockpiling and things happening there, so that this is essential. Getting the goods through is essential. So we've got lots of interesting questions for Luke tonight. And helping us tonight, we've got Jenny, who is going to be monitoring social media. And if you'd like to ask any questions of Luke, then please send in your questions on Facebook and maybe Twitter, and we'll try and bring these questions up into the discussion tonight. And we've got Bernd helping on the technical aspects tonight. So, and just before we start, can I just say Glasgow Loves EU are an apolitical organisation. We did campaign to remain in the EU, but as that now seems to not be possible, we're now looking at the best possible relationships with our European neighbours and looking at whether no deal or the deal, whether these are the best options to take us forward. I first met Luke on Twitter, and I see you said on there, Luke, that being a truck driver was your dream job. How did you actually get started in trucking?
I've always considered myself lucky with that, because I wasn't my dream job wasn't to be a doctor or an astronaut or anything. Something easy, attainable, like a lorry driver. No, it runs in the family. My granddad on my dad's side actually was a lorry driver. I never met him, but I feel connected to him because he died before I was born, and my dad is, and my brothers are, and so basically it's like my whole life has been trucks, and from my earliest memories are involving trucks and going with dad in the lorry. So I used to go every holiday, every time he could.
All right, yeah,
yeah,
excellent. And what age did you start getting into actually working as a truck driver then? Quite young?
My age. Well, to start with, I'd say that not being an astronaut or anything, but it actually can be really hard to get into, because without any experience, they don't want to know. And so I started off on buses, believe it or not, because it was much easier to get into. So I drove local buses at the age of 19. And then it took me nearly 5 years to get a job driving trucks, despite the fact I was driving coaches all over Europe. No truck company would give me the start. It's like no experience, not interested. So it was finally one company, an Irish company actually, that my dad worked for, finally gave me a start. So that was off.
That was excellent. Is this so you sent us a picture of your trucks? I'll just bring them up as a background.
Oh yeah, there we are. Best. That was my.
Need to go that way.
That was Virginia, an Irish company I worked for. The longest job I had, it was pretty much, that was the job I'd always dreamed of having. So I travelled all over Europe with them. They took me to places like Norway and Crete and Budapest, to like the most extreme places. It was amazing job, wonderful company.
Yeah. So that's Southern Ireland.
County Cavan. Well, the north of the south, if you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So again, there'll be issues, I guess, with nowadays if we were to go back, and if we're outside, being outside of Europe or whatever.
What got me is a lot of lorry drivers are Brexit voters or supporters, and like you get before Virginia, I worked for a Dutch company, HSF. And that was mostly British as well. And you get loads of British drivers working for Irish companies, and you just go. It's literally no different to starting a job. For a British company, you just over you go, get in the truck, off you go. And it amazes me that people are anti-Brexit. Like you'd get drivers, especially because when I was at the Dutch company, they just started replacing any British drivers that left, because it was nearly all British drivers then, with Polish drivers. And you'd get the British drivers moaning about, they're taking our jobs, blah, blah, blah. And I had to stop them and say, no, we've taken a Dutchman's job. They're not taking our jobs. People just don't get the fact that you're doing exactly what they're doing. People, you get so many British drivers who are very anti the whole Eastern European driver thing. And it's British drivers have done it for decades. We're one of the nations that sent most drivers abroad overall. So anyway, I've gone off on a ramble then.
No, it's true. I think we had at our Glasgow Loves EU stall, we had a driver whose the company he drove for was based in Northern Ireland, but I've got a feeling the company had to move into Southern Ireland to make sure they could keep the EU, within the EU market. So just to get my terminology right, is it lorry or truck, HGV? Would these all apply to that?
They all apply. Like lorry is a very British word.
Right.
No one and outside the UK would understand you if you said lorry. Truck's very American, but used a lot now in this country. Right. HGV would be the technical term, heavy goods vehicle.
Yeah.
Although now that's actually the more modern version of that, which the authorities would use, would be LGV, large goods vehicle, because obviously not all goods vehicles are heavy. So just to try and encompass everything. So,
and as part of your work, or perhaps more widely, lorry drivers' works, what proportion of the journeys that you would make would have been across to the European mainland versus just working within the UK?
Well, I was looked for jobs going abroad. So like when I was working for the Irish or the Dutch, well, the Dutch was always going abroad, but the Irish would be 80%, something like that. But the majority of their work was actually Ireland, UK. The European work for British operators is almost dead. Like there's very few companies do it now, and the ones that do specialize, like the last couple I worked for, Whites and Broughton, in the same area near Swindon, both specialize mostly, and it's mostly meat that they take abroad, fridge work. So.
Right, so sort of refrigerated trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and when you did do these journeys across to like European mainland, was that quite simple within the EU? Did you have loads of paperwork, or was it?
No, not at all. It's like delivering, like we do, like say for instance, taking a load of beef from Ireland to Europe, France, or wherever. No different to taking it to the UK. Same bit of paper. Just get on a ferry, get off a ferry, get on a ferry, get off a ferry, or get on the train, get off the train. That was it. There's nothing to it, nothing at all.
Yeah. So you think there's a heck of a lot of it is things like meat and fish and things like that then, rather than
nowadays? Yeah, most of the British operators like that do European work still have to specialize. I mean, it is the meat of the refrigerator, so it would be meat and fish. There's still a load of events work in the UK, so doing concerts and stuff like that. So all the staging and stuff. But they'd be the two main, like a lot of the more bread and butter work that got swept up by, that's partly a reason for Brexit. Got swept up by a lot of Eastern European companies because it's obviously cheaper. It's just the way it's always been. But then once upon a time, it was British companies who swept everything up because they were cheaper, and it's the swings and roundabouts. So.
Yeah. And what about all the sort of just-in-time vehicles that we hear about? Is it not hundreds of journeys every day?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the car parts and stuff, but that's all mostly European companies do that now. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So, so what was the next thing we were going to ask? Yeah, so you had said you'd been involved in Operation Stack, which is sort of what was the reason for that again?
Well, Operation Stack started. Well, I don't actually know when it started, but it became about because there would often be strikes. So French workers on the train would strike, or there might be a breakdown on the train, which was fairly frequent, or there was a fire on the train that one time, which reduced services massively, or if there's bad weather for ferries. Dover, Calais, and Kent and the other side gets stacked up so quickly because so much freight. Like if you go and stand on the side of the M20 in Kent, like it's just a sea of trucks constantly going backwards and forwards. Because it's basically the main portal to the UK. So if anything goes wrong, like it starts stacking up quickly. So they stack them so it's on a 3-lane motorway. So if you're going to the port of Dover, they'll, if I remember rightly, they'll stack you on the left. And if you're going on the train, they'll stack you on the right, and they'll leave a gap down the middle, and the police will come and go up and down. I mean, the first time I got caught up in Operation Stack, I just drove down the middle and got to the front of the queue, and the policeman started shouting at me. But then I said in English, like I'm so sorry, I didn't really know what I was doing, and they just basically let me go, which saved me something like 40 hours. Because normally they'll because they happens quite often, so you must have been in a good mood. If drivers do that normally, they'll just turn you around and send you to the back of the queue. So
So you got away with it.
I did, yeah.
You maybe shouldn't have told everyone that.
No.
So and if you are stuck in it, presumably it's quite unpleasant. I mean,
Yeah, I've been stuck
there
in
won't
it.
be
Like,
facilities and things.
been it a few times since then. If you do, I don't know whether they're still there because I've not been down that way for a couple of years. But down the M20, there was like portaloos every few hundred yards on the grass verge, and it's because of Operation Stack. So
Oh,
basically,
right.
that's what they're there for, is just keep like, and you can imagine the state they're in.
Yeah.
So no, it's like it's a horror. It's a grim experience.
Yeah, horrendous. Yeah, and I see they've got Operation Brock now for the leaving of the EU. So this is the new sort of name for the thing.
Yeah, basically just renaming by the looks of things. I'm just reading about it now. It's just a PR exercise, isn't it? The new name.
Yeah.
That's
where they got the name from. So, and what about animals and things, like people that are transporting like live animals and
livestock and
things like that?
For a lot of what I was doing, fridge work. So if you're carrying fresh goods, you can go down the middle. You're not. You do get to just go straight for the port.
To skip through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so it ended up quite topical, our chat tonight, because during the week we heard that the EU-UK trade talks had sort of stalled, and one of the issues seems to be about the British hauliers, and two of the things that seemed to come up was the idea that people sometimes will make a journey right across from UK to Turkey, for example, maybe not stopping on the way, so that might not be allowed. And then the idea of, I guess, once you've made your drop off, returning with an empty truck is not a good idea. People seem to pick up, or maybe can do 2 or 3 pickups normally.
Well, what you can,
yeah. Are these really important issues? Is this?
They're not as big
stalling
as
the talks on
being made out. One of the really things that was good about the EU is, as a lot of people would think is bad about the EU, is any operator can work in any other country as if it's their own country. So that's why people got fed up with the Eastern European companies that come and work in the UK almost exclusively sometimes. But that also meant when you are over in Europe, you can say you're delivering in one place, you may not have a backload for the UK anywhere near you. And so sometimes you could, didn't happen that often with me, but you could say, for instance, you unloaded in Rome and you had a backload in Austria, you could reload from Rome to Austria. So that part of the leg is paid as well, and then get your backload to come back to the UK. So it was just about empty running and stuff.
Yeah. So it's obviously quite useful, but you don't think it's worth stalling the talks over?
And yeah, the thing is, I think a lot's been made of it, and it.
Yeah.
No, I just don't. I can't see people voted for this, and Europe's doing exactly what everybody could have predicted.
Yeah.
You can't leave Europe and then have all the benefits of staying in Europe. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting. We wonder if we're just trying to make it look like we're trying to scrape around looking for.
There's a lot of bad PR going on. It's like people trying to make Europe out to be a bad guy too often.
Yeah. Okay, and I think Jenny is saying there's some questions have come through on social media from people that are watching.
People were just asking about what perishable goods, and in particular medicines, because I know that some medicines have a use by date. So do you know what the situation will be then if there are backlogs?
I assume I've only done medicines a couple of times in my career, and I assume that would fall under the same as with fresh goods and livestock and stuff, that they would be able to bypass Operation Stack or Brock and carry on through. I remember the odd occasion I did medicines in the past, it is very stringent and it's very strict, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I imagine it will just be able to bypass Stack.
Mm-hmm. Skip through, yeah. Is that any others, Jenny? Is that the main one at the moment?
Yeah, just previously you were saying that you're in Wales, and we're just wondering, like, if there's any kind of, do you think, change in attitude in Wales in terms of Brexit? Like, I know because obviously Wales voted leave.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this might upset some people, but one thing that's that I've changed is I'm veering towards Welsh independence now, which I never would have done before. I'm just thinking that like we'd be better off on our own, and I'm sort of hoping it happens eventually. Yeah, I don't know, Wales. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm this sort of the same. It seems that we've been completely outvoted, and it feels that Brexit has really shown this up now.
Yeah, I think Brexit's turning a lot of people. It's like this whole shambles in this government has basically made me think, like, what are the benefits of staying in the UK? Or I know it seems a bit strange, like being pro-Welsh independence, being pro-EU as well. I mean, but I'd rather have a Wales in the EU than a Wales in the UK out of the EU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. So, and any particularly memorable journeys that you've made with?
Oh, yeah, there's a few. I didn't really think about this question. I could have thought about. We used to do. One of the reasons I liked working for the Irish company was their work was really interesting. So we used to do a lot of. There was these big Jewish groups that would go on holiday as a massive group, but they would take all their own food with them. So it'd been blessed by their own rabbi, and it'd be loaded on the lorry, and you'd drive it to wherever they were going on holiday. So like I'd taken them to Crete and Greece a couple of times and various other places, and they were always really interesting, those jobs.
Yeah.
And then we used to oh, that was one of those, like, that was one of my biggest problems with borders was Norway. Actually, was I took a load of their food, and they said be in Copenhagen for port for Monday morning to meet this cruise ship, and I was there at Monday morning and there was no cruise ship, and I grabbed somebody and he said, oh, that left yesterday, it should have been Sunday morning. So I basically had to chase it to Norway. But of course, the border, there was nothing, no customs paperwork with it or anything, because it was basically just an inside EU load, so you didn't really need any paperwork. And it took us about 12 hours to get through the border because they had to send all this paperwork backwards and forwards. And this pretty basically what's going to happen with us, I think. It's just going to become stress, basically. Getting into Norway was stress. I love Norway. It's one of my favorite countries, but getting in there in a lorry was stressful.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny if you're catching up the cruise ship, but maybe worse because it was unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what is the feeling among like the other drivers then about, is the future going to involve lots of paperwork or?
I don't know. Everybody's just, it's like so up in the air, isn't it? It's like really shouldn't be at this point. We've left, and like the fact that nobody really knows what's happening, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's like madness. Like, if I think about it too much, it makes me angry. But the fact we've got to this point and we still don't really know what's happening is just insanity, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, because there seemed to be some talk of they would just have an open border to allow people to come in for 6 months without checking at all, which like goes completely against the idea of having control of your borders. And,
so much for control of your borders.
Yeah.
Well, as I was saying to you before, like one of the biggest arguments that people, pro-Brexit people, rant on about is taking back control of our borders. And as I was saying before, we never lost control of our borders. We're an island. Like we control every single vehicle and person that comes into this country, like no other country that's not an island can. Like it's, our borders have always been tight. Like it's not the EU's fault for us not. No, I didn't hear.
Not checking. I know. And we could have checked the people. You only had 3 months in a country anyway that you could go in basically for a holiday. And so is it mostly through Dover that the big sort of trucks go through? There's other ports as well that do different types of transport.
Yeah. Hang on. Can I? My battery's going flat, and I'm going to need to unplug the headset. Can you hear me without the headset? Because it's plugged into the charger.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Sorry. Find this a bit better. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Sorry, what were you saying?
What was it? I was just wondering about the different types of, so there's also like container ports and things. Would you ever be, is that just different sort of trucks that deliver those containers to different ports?
Yeah, the container work is pretty much all internal. So like Felixstowe is one of the biggest container ports in the world. So a lot of our stuff comes in through there.
Right.
And that's all internal. And container operators won't ever leave the country generally.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and on your Twitter feed, you seem to you talk about the cooking. So,
yeah, the cooking.
what could you give us any tips on good recipes, or and is it like just on a one hob that you have to cook?
Yeah, it's just have a little camping gas stove and a couple of pans, and off we go. Basically, just cook anything really. Like, I'm a big breakfast fan, so I'm quite good at my breakfast omelets.
Yeah.
But yeah, like problem is like lorry drivers, they used to cook once upon a time, but then they stopped for some reason. Well, most of them did, and became sort of unfashionable. And they don't want the cab to stink out and all that, but it doesn't stink the cab out. And like my family has always been a bit obsessed with food, so cooking was just an obvious route to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good. So, any more questions, Jenny, that have come through? Is anything else?
Yeah, and there's one about the producers. Do you think that producers in general will be like still in favor of leave, or anti-Brexit, or like would you have any contact with the actual producers themselves?
No, not in general, but like the big companies, like I can't. Well, I say some of the big ones like Tate and Lyle are pro-Brexit, aren't they? But that's partly because they could just pay people to do all the hard work. But like a lot of the companies are built on the back of the EU, basically. Like the EU made everything so easy that so many of these companies are actually large and successful because of what the EU has given them, ultimately, in my opinion. So for many of them to be anti the EU would be just insane.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah, I mean, it's like the sort of lorry driving is the front of it all, isn't it? But there's so many jobs, British jobs behind the whole thing, and dependent on this EU free movement and single market. And yeah, is this have you heard about this level playing field thing? I don't really, I think Bernd, you mentioned the term earlier. But they keep talking about this. I don't know. Do you know about that, Luke?
No, I don't know whether it's what you'd refer to, but the problem is a lot of the operators consider this whole Eastern European invasion, as they call it. Like, so the EU, as I say, you can any company from any country can work in the EU as if it's a home country. So then we had lots of Eastern European operators come over here and work cheaply, but like it wasn't anything that we didn't do ourselves at one point in the past.
Yeah.
They see it as an invasion, but it's not really anything of the sort, basically.
Yeah, I know it's bizarre. I know I don't know much about that at all, but I know that a lot of the big fish companies and things in Scotland are perhaps like Italian or based in Italy. But I think those are actually Scottish. I think it was a Scottish company that was the guy apparently based himself in Italy, because that was another person that came to our stall and was telling us about that, and he was saying his employer wasn't bothered because they were already sort of EU based. But yeah.
Yeah, the problem is we didn't know. The problem is like nobody really, well, some of us do understand what we've got with the EU. Like the problem, if I talk to Brexiteers and like ask why, give me a reason why that we should leave the EU. None of them has ever given me a sensible reason. All they do is spout that, bring control of our borders nonsense again, and this, that, and the other, and bring back control. And it's like we never lost control. I watched an interesting program actually. Was the other day was I don't know if anybody saw it. Was the program about Rupert Murdoch on, I think it was the BBC, and there was a clip in that with Andrew Neil from the BBC saying that in Canberra, everything Rupert Murdoch says is gospel. Everybody listens to him. In London, everybody listens to Rupert Murdoch. In Washington, everybody listens to Rupert Murdoch. in Brussels, nobody listens to Rupert Murdoch. Nobody takes any notice of him. He's not really very important. And I thought that was one of the best adverts for the EU I've ever seen. Basically.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's scary. I watched the serial, the Murdochs on BBC as well. Yeah. Well, Jenny says there's another question.
Yeah, so we have a question here from Victoria, and she's asked, are hauliers unionised? And if so, can the union shout louder about the issues involved?
No, not at all. It's a very anti-union sort of industry, actually. Like, that was one of Maggie Thatcher's biggest, like, for some it would be triumphs, for others it'd be mistakes, but she made supporting unions become very unfashionable in this country, and it is very unfashionable amongst truck drivers. So, like, very few of them are unionized, and fewer of them even want to be. It's not something that anybody's interested in anybody, because it became just such so unfashionable. Like, it was just seen as destroying industry and stuff. So.
And just a follow-on question, if I can, are any of your colleagues from the EU, and have they had to apply for settled status, and did they get any kind of support from their employers when they had to do that?
No, my last, the job I'm off sick from at the moment was working for a local operator in Wales, which is mostly local drivers, but I've worked with lots of drivers from abroad for the Irish company and the Dutch company, and I don't know much about their circumstances, but as I say, from my own point of view, I could go and work in Ireland or in Holland or wherever I wanted, as if I was working in the UK. Like, there was no, that's the thing that would be like one of the worst things about leaving the EU, is just that being taken away is horrible.
Yeah, you've been, I mean, you're completely been at the forefront really of experiencing being in the EU.
Oh yeah, I've made the most of it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, people like moan about like the control it has and all this and other, which is all of rubbish anyway. But like, you just need to make the most of it. Like, this country has never made the most of its EU membership. Other countries do, basically. That's why it's more popular in the rest of Europe. Yeah,
crazy. Yeah. And which is the favourite country that you've visited, would you say?
Norway's always been my favourite. Like, even from before I even travelled abroad as a kid, I've always been obsessed with Norway for some reason. To dive in, France, actually, probably. I love France. It's a fantastic country, and it's very easy to drive around. Great motorways and stuff. So. And one of the best trips is probably Greece. I enjoy doing Greece too.
Right. Yeah. That's good. And Norway, the roads are quite impressive. Is that the attraction of Norway?
Yes. Yeah. The scenery is outstanding. I've only ever done the one trip in a truck. Unfortunately, it's very rare to find companies still doing Norway. Because mostly it's borders. Like, I've been to Sweden so many times. I love Sweden as well.
Yeah.
Because it's in the EU, but I've been to Norway like once in a 20-year career. And I wonder if the border has anything to do with that, actually, thinking about it now. I've never thought about that before. But
the border with the EU.
Norway isn't in the EU and Sweden is. Like, in fact, I've been to Sweden more times than I can count.
Oh, yeah.
But I've only ever been to Norway once.
Yeah.
I wonder if the border is the reason.
Could be. So that's been like really interesting tonight, and not necessarily the answers we expected. I didn't, but it's given us a huge insight into the whole area of truck driving. And
nervous.
But yeah, well, it's been really good. So thank you, Luke, for talking to us.
No worries. Enjoyed it. Great.
Thanks to everyone listening for sending in some good questions.
Yeah, it's great. Really interesting.
Okay.
Got me thinking now. I'm now thinking about Norway and
your next trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.